Hi, everybody. This is Chief Paul Rickard of the Town of Mount Hope Police Department, and welcome you all to the June edition of Coffee with the Chief. Unfortunately, we are still doing our coffee remotely, but we're hoping that maybe in July, if not July, August, we'll be able to go back to meeting in person, at which time we'll go back to Mix on Main Street, and I'll actually be able to buy you coffee. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction. The trends are going that way, and we're starting to open up more and more each week. And I do miss the monthly interactions with everybody down at Mix, but I am available. So if you have any questions or concerns or anything comes up, you can always email me at chief@mounthopepolice.com. You don't have to wait till August or September or whenever. So this month I wanted to bring someone in from the school so we could talk about how the schools have kind of wrapped up their school year. So we're lucky to have Julia Downey, who's the assistant principal at Otisville Elementary School, joining me today. And thank you, Julia, for coming. And I said my challenge is not to look at you. Got to look at the camera. But why don't you introduce yourselves to everybody?
Hi, everybody. It's Julia Downey, assistant principal at Otisville. I've been there since 2011, and so it's been a little while. But so many of you might know me already. So it's been great. So I grew up in Orange County. I grew up actually in Cornwall, and my first job was in the Washingtonville School District. So I had that for 10 years. And then when I started having children, I worked for BOCES for a few years doing part-time work while I was, raising my children. And then I actually went down to Nyack in Rockland County for a couple of years. And then I came to Minnesink. So I've done a few things, all around the county. So it's been a great experience. I really am enjoying being an administrator. So, it's a different thing from being a teacher, but I love people. And that's the great thing about being an administrator is that you deal with people all the time. So, and children, of course.
Now, what grade levels and subject did you teach? Were you elementary school?
Yeah, so actually I taught in Washingtonville, I taught 4th grade and 6th grade. And then I went back as a math specialist in the middle school. So I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then in Nyack, I taught kindergarten through 5th grade. So interestingly enough, I always tell people that I've been in the classroom teaching since kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade, every single grade. Yeah, so I understand the challenges and, the growths of the children at each age.
Yeah, because obviously that's a wide range from kindergarten to 8th grade in the development of people. So you've seen a little bit of it all.
Yes, yeah.
How have you been making out the past 3 months?
Yeah, we've been doing okay. You know what? I think a lot of depends on the weather, right? I think our moods are dependent upon that. And when we had some cold and rainy days in March and April, I think everybody was just feeling down and tired of being home and that type of thing. But once the sun comes out, I just feel much better. You can get out, you can go for a walk. Even, when I'm doing work at home, the sun is shining. I just think it makes a big impact, on us. And I watched the other places, like California, that, of course, everybody is home and they're out in the sunshine in California. We're here in New York when it's snowing in May, it's different.
I'm with you. I think that you're right. The weather makes all the difference. At least if you're sitting on your deck or by the pool, it makes it a little bit easier being stuck at home than when it was those cold, nasty days in March.
Yeah,
it was a tough
almost. One. Yeah. But
this is, this is our 3rd or 4th month now we've done this remotely, and I've had the principal from Port Jervis High School was on a few months ago, and I had a basketball coach from the college on last month, and we're just trying to talk about how everyone's handling this on a personal level. I've spoken to 2 fathers, so you're the first mother I'm going to be speaking to since we started doing this stay at home. So as a mom and as a wife and as a educator, like how is it all working around your house? How are you dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's different than when you're going out to work, most definitely. I mean, the kids are home. My children are older, so they were in college, so they were doing online, college courses. So it's a little bit different than they can go upstairs and do that. Than when you're a mother and you have to be home and you have little children around, so it's they want your attention, right? I'm doing a lot more cooking than I ever have, and a lot more cleaning up. Dishwashers are running a couple times a day, which we would run, every couple of days, So it is, a lot of trying to keep the family unit together. My husband has been going out to work. So that has been good. He leaves, and then I'll do my work from home. So it can be challenging, definitely, for families, that have to stay home and have little kids. I really feel, that it's a lot of work for them to balance it all out. And like I said, since my kids are older, it's a little bit easier for me, definitely.
Right. So it's like, how are you keeping yourself and your family on a routine, or are you, or you don't find a routine is necessary? Have you developed a routine?
Routines are really important, especially when you have young kids, I think, and even as a person yourself. So yeah, I try to get up, around the same time that I used to get up. My kids are older, like I said, so if they sleep in, I just, encourage them, make sure you're doing your work today. A couple of my boys were, they had gone out to work, besides college. So they had to find a balance of doing work, but also coming home and finishing out their coursework. So, I think it's important. I tried to schedule a walk in the afternoon, just to do work, mainly and, throughout the day. But then by 4 o'clock, I would, turn everything off, go for a walk, especially when the weather was nice. When it wasn't nice, I would try to go downstairs, in my house and just do a little bit of a workout. So I think that's important, especially for little kids.
We were dealing with, people were giving us feedback. There was some mental health issues where people just were in this when I say mental health, where they're in a funk and they just couldn't get themselves out of it. And that's what we were trying to tell people. Start a routine. I think it's gotten, like we were saying, a little better with the weather, but not sleeping till 1 o'clock in the afternoon and walking around in your pajamas till dinner time, I think really helps people mentally getting themselves going. And I think, as you know, my son, who's a ninth grader, so last night he was doing homework. It was like 5 after 11. And I was like, what are you doing homework or work at home now at 5 after 11? Because Dad, no problem. I have till 11:59. And I'm like, wait a minute, you waited all day. So we're still working on the routine with him a little bit. And I think it's going to run out before we get this down pat with him. But I guess I'm glad that he's getting the work done, even if it's he's going right up against the deadline. But it's such an important thing, I think, that routine.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because there were times when this first was happening and you just didn't really know what to do with yourself. So a lot of times the whole day would go by and I would say, wow, what did I do today? And then you have to really mentally rethink what you're going to do. So I agree. Yeah, that was good. And when I started doing that routine of getting up pretty close to when I used to get up, going to bed pretty close to when I used to go to bed, I think I feel better, than before, and I think it is better. It's good. It's good for children. It's good for children, most definitely, because they're so used to getting up, knowing when their bus was going to come, knowing exactly when their lunch was. I mean, their body would react. They would start to get hungry at the time that lunch was normally being, given to them.
Right.
And going home and having playtime and recess. So yeah, it was. I have heard from parents that have tried to do that. Well, they'll get the children up, and at 9 o'clock they will do the Pledge of Allegiance, with them. Yeah, and know that they had certain work times, and the parents that have told me that, they said that it's much better. The kids know what the expectation is.
My younger son, he to your point about even lunch, it's 10:30. He's like, Dad, what are we having for lunch? Is it lunch ready? I'm like, Chris, we just finished breakfast like 45 minutes ago. But we finally got that fixed now too, where we're having lunch not at the 10:45 like they do, I guess, in the middle school, to a more reasonable a time. So, what do you think the most challenging part of the Otisville Elementary School community has been during this period?
I mean, I think it's the unknown. I think people, knew that we had to go and shelter in place. And it was a lot of, okay, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And then it wasn't being back in 2 weeks. And then it was extended. And I think there was just so many challenges, because people, even myself and the teachers too, we anticipated having the kids come back in. We, anticipated saying goodbye to them, around now, and doing all the things that we used to do. And then when the governor finally said, no, that we're not coming back, then it was, you had to readjust, and say, okay, now what are we going to do? I think it's challenging for people like you that are essential workers and that have to leave the home, and you have children at home. So you have to make arrangements. Young children, you can't leave home alone. I mean, your children are a little bit older,
right.
And you're also, close to your home. But some people commute into the city, and I think that challenge was tough. The other challenge is then trying to get onto this virtual learning, and then for them to try to help the kids. This is very difficult because the curriculum is different than when you and I went to school,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there we've had, parents like, oh, I don't know how to do this, or my child doesn't understand this, and they're trying to figure it out to help their children as well. So it's been a lot of challenges, definitely, whether you were out working or whether you were home, again, creating those routines that you had talked about and trying to help your children. They became teachers, in essence, parents are teachers now, helping them.
I tell people all the time, when I went for my master's degree, which was a few years now, and the online wasn't where it is today, there was one class that was required to be taken online. I think it was just when the online was really starting to get some traction. And that was the hardest class I took. I don't think people realize how difficult online can be for people. It's not as easy as you think. And I think that's a challenge too.
Yeah, and I think even my own children who are older, 20 and 22, they don't like it either because we like personal interaction with people. You can raise your hand, you can ask a question. The teachers show you videos, they show you things. But I mean, online is much different. You have to do it at your own pace. If you don't understand it, you get kind of lost. And it is scheduling too. It's right, finding the time. Oh, I got to do this assignment at 11 o'clock. So people are like, oh, in an hour, only an hour left.
Sure, exactly. So Vinny Beal is the principal. How have you and him worked together and the staff to really try to kind of overcome some of those challenges, in the community?
Right. So technology is great now. I mean, talk about the pandemic back in 1919, they didn't have technology like this and the connections that we can make, over this type of platform. So, we would have weekly meetings, over this type of platform, seeing how everybody was doing. The school district offered a lot of professional development for teachers because you have to keep in mind the younger teachers did not use this platform of Google Classroom because young children learn, through interaction with people. And it's really more for third, fourth, and fifth, and on, high school and middle school. So there was a lot of professional development that had to be done to help the teachers, get up and running and be able to offer online learning for as young as a 5-year-old, and what does that look like? So I would have to say Teresa Parker, she's at the high school now, but she does half-time as a district employee. She put a lot of work into getting the professional development ready. And the professional development would be like this, it would be somebody like herself, Teresa Parker, doing the professional development and helping the teachers get through it all.
Sure.
So
I think the other challenge too is, at least for me, as you may know, I referee on the side, and they've been doing some professional development via Zoom type of stuff. The hard part too is that you're in your house and everyone else in the house is not doing professional development. So it's distracting, and you're hitting the mute button and you're yelling at everyone in the house to quiet down, or I'm wandering around the house with my laptop, so I think that's also challenging and can be difficult for the parents to kind of get up with that going, and for the teachers for that matter. It's a hard thing to kind of put in motion with no lead time.
Yeah, and in this platform, you can't talk over people because then everybody's muted out. We would have many a meeting with somebody's dog in the background was barking at a squirrel or something, and that overrides everything because all you're hearing is the dog barking. So
crazy.
Yeah, definitely some challenges. I've been part of some of the teachers that opened up to have Google Meets for the classroom. So you'd have all the kids, and I've been a part of some of those. Some of them are laying on their bed, and some of them their cat comes. So, it's very interesting to see, where the kids are even set up, when they do meets and the noises that are in the background,
Yeah, it's tough. Now, in our district, Menacing Valley School District, were there any issues with some children not having either internet or maybe even good internet? Because I know some of the internet is spotty. Even if you wanted it, it's a little spotty. What were some of those challenges and issues that you had to overcome?
Yeah, so we do have that. I would say a good majority of people do have internet, but we do have some challenges where people don't, or like you say, they're in an area that's not good. We have some teachers even say, don't call me on my cell phone because I don't get cell phone service where I live. Mm-hmm. The district did a couple of times where people didn't have laptops, or if a parent was using their laptop for their own, work at home, they were able to pick up more laptops for the kids. So, we started with grades 3 through 12 And then when school was not coming back in session, we offered it to K-1 too as well. And we had a great many people that came and picked up laptops. And we did drop off ones because some people didn't have a car or couldn't get to because they were offered at the middle school, couldn't get there. So if they notified us, either the tech person or Mr. Beal or myself would bring it out to their home. Sometimes, one family didn't know how to get on. So, I stayed, at a distance, but with my mask on to show them how to get into the platform. And because we wanted all kids to connect. And that's important because if you don't connect, there will be gaps.
Definitely. And I think that's I know the governor, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago came out with his Reimagine Education, which I don't know if he came out with it such a detailed plan or it was something that was on the tip of his tongue that day, but it was a pretty big outcry because I think there's so many little pieces that have to be put in place before we can really start talking about the curriculum of how it's going to look. And again, we're in a pretty good area. I have friends that live upstate New York where they have, it's not dial-up, but it's not much better than dial-up. And how do you reimagine when you can't even get, a conversation or a signal? So I think there's a lot that has to be fixed before we can really, count on this, I guess.
Yeah. And I think in this situation that we're going through right now, these are all the things that you probably didn't think about until we had to go into this type of mode because, you figured the kids are going to come in and learning is going to happen there. And if they were able to do stuff at home online, then it was fine. And if they didn't, they came in and they did it in the school. So now you really see the gaps that we have in terms of our technology in some areas.
And I think, the physical fitness end and then some of the, you can't, I know they're doing those online too, but it's just not the same, to get the kids out and getting some exercise because as we know, children just don't get enough exercise. Are we going to see problems with obesity and diabetes increase 5 years down the line because of maybe some of these things we're seeing now? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge of parents too, is to encourage them to get out. And the other kids they can't wait to get out, because I know baseball season was canceled. Maybe it's come again. Maybe they'll do it in the summer. But, our kids, some of them love it. They love, they miss that whole idea of getting together with their, friend playing baseball or, so my kids play soccer, and my child played basketball. I think I saw you one time when you were, those sports are very close contact, right? So.
And, we're actually probably in our school district luckier than a lot because we live in places where there's space. Everyone probably has some sort of backyard here, or if they don't, they have access to it. There's city school districts and cities, where the kids are locked into an apartment, which makes it even more difficult. So.
Yeah, and parents are afraid to send them out sometimes too.
Absolutely.
If the virus is out there, they're afraid to, have them go out with other people around. So we understand that.
So if there was one thing in your life that you miss about Otisville Elementary since before COVID, what would it be now?
Well, it's definitely the people and the children. I think we are, a human race that just needs contact. We need contact with others. And, I'm a very sociable person. I like to, be near people, talk to people. How are you doing? That type of thing. And that has been difficult. It's been difficult not to be able to see people in person. You can do this type of a Zoom meeting or something like that. A little different than just actually talking to people and seeing a group of people. The kids, we miss the kids so much, really the teachers so much, and I know they miss us too, because it's nice. They have a connection with us, so that unconditional love that they have for their teachers, do.
And I think, I was on a basketball refereeing conference call the other night, and we were talking about, and it was just a side conversation about the parents really maybe valuing the teachers and the faculty and the staff and the administrators and everybody a little bit more when this is all said and done, because maybe they'll see what really goes into, teaching their children. So that might be a little side effect too. That'll help.
Yeah. And I'm sure people have seen all those funny comics and stuff like that about, parents being like, when's school going to open or, that type of thing. So yeah, it is challenging. It is.
Now, in your personal life, what is something that's missing that or what is something that you really miss that you're not able to do at this point?
Well, I have a social group too. We have women that get together. We do like a book club every month, and my husband and I go out to dinner on Friday nights. So those are all things that, we definitely miss. So, it's nice to connect with people. We do it through Zoom. And, my husband and I now cook, but it's nothing like going out to eat and having a chef prepare your meal, have the waitresses, wait on you. But outdoor dining I hear is opening up, which is, this week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to get out there and do that. But that has been something that, I definitely miss. It's not a lot of nice family time. My husband and my two boys, we have meals every night together. And we've been playing games and doing that kind of stuff. So that is nice, but you do miss others. My family, I haven't been able to see my own family. My mother is 86 years old. I do grocery shopping for her. But, we don't visit too long, because I do go into a school setting sometimes,
right.
I'm out of a school setting, so
right.
difficult that way.
It's, I'm not ready personally. I'm not really into the takeout. It just doesn't seem like the same as when you sit down, and it's just, especially if you're looking to get like a really decent meal, it just doesn't seem the same for me. So we've been doing a lot more cooking at home than normally. So it's everyone's, comes at it a little bit differently, but that's interesting. You say that as well. So you're part of a book club. So one of the things we always like to ask is, what book are you reading now, or what was your last book you read?
You know what? During this time, I read a lot of books because, I tried to watch Netflix and those things on television and stuff, and I would watch something. But then, I decided to start reading because as an educator, most educators are readers. Mm-hmm. So we do. So there's a list that I came across, 100 books you should read before you die. So I've been going down the list and trying, ones that I've read, so I read just recently Water for Elephants was on that list. That's about a circus. And then The Great Gatsby, which I read in high school, but I do not really remember much about it. So I just picked that one up. But the great thing about the library is that you can download these books through your Kindle, for free.
Yeah.
So a lot of them I'll look, on that list, and then we'll look. But, I saw, one of the teachers had a book, The Giver of Stars. She loaned it to me. I read that. So, we try to help each other out too, So it's been good. But The Great Gatsby is what I'm reading now.
All right. So you mentioned Netflix. What was the last movie you watched?
Gee, I don't even know. I haven't watched a movie in a while. Because, my kids, we have two separate, I have it downstairs and then I have it upstairs. And my boys go upstairs. I don't know if your boys do this, but they go upstairs and they watch their own thing. So they watch like anime, manga, and they watch that. And then my husband and I will watch the news. And I cannot remember the last movie. How about you? Do you remember the last movie?
You know what? I'm not nor my wife, we're not big movie people. We never. So back when this all started, once school ended, we started on Sunday nights trying to watch a movie. So I've probably seen more movies in the last 3 months than I have in the last 5 years combined. And, some were better than others. And in fairness, some of them we never made it through because it just didn't keep our attention. But, there's, I can't even think of it. The Ford versus Ferrari was actually a little long, but I thought that was an interesting movie. I never really heard that story before. So that was good. So there's been a few. I think the problem now is we've run through all the good ones. So the other night I said, let's watch So Who Married an Axe Murderer, which is like quickly I was told, well, that's from like the early 90s, which it was 93. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that movie's so old. I remember that when it came out. So I'm now doing retreads from these movies when I was a lot younger because I've run out of good movies to watch now. So that's my thing. And book-wise, I'm reading Marty Dempsey, who is chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, just came out with a book. So that's the book I'm kind of going through now. And he's local. He grew up in Greenwood Lake. And
so we know very well.
Yeah, and he went to Burke. So that was kind of the tie-in. So I'm reading his book. The challenge for me is I was big into the Audible books because driving to games and being on the road a lot with that, I would listen on the Audible, and I stopped reading as much. So now I've kind of transitioned back because it's just not the same sitting in your house listening to a tape or an audio recording. So now I'm back to reading the book. So it's kind of been another really adjustment. So, but that's an excellent book. If anyone hasn't picked it up, it's a great book, and he's great. So
Yeah, so my husband's best friend is Mike Dempsey, his youngest brother.
Oh, okay.
My husband went to Burke, and we went down to Washington, and we met, actually,
Cool.
yeah, about him. He was,
Yeah.
when he was joint chiefs of staff, and so we met him and stuff like that. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law was the ambassador to Indonesia,
Okay.
and before that, he worked under, General Dempsey.
Okay.
So we met him. So great person and great
Yeah.
guy, very well spoken. Yes.
Yeah, no, he is, and yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been a good book, and I didn't really know that much about him. I knew, I went to Burke, so I knew he went to Burke, but I didn't. And this book has really been an excellent. So if anyone's out there looking for a book, that's a great book. So just switching gears a little bit, I know you're not in the school right now every day, but what is the most stressful thing about your job, and then how do you de-stress from that?
Yeah, so de-stressing, I'll just talk about that. I mean, I love chocolate, so
Okay.
I will throw chocolate in my mouth all the time. So I used to have on my desk Hershey Kisses and chocolate or that kind of stuff. It helps also when the teachers come in and talk to me, so we kind of share candy together and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have since not put chocolate on my desk anymore because, more than half of the chocolate I was eating, and the teachers were having 20% and I was having the other 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed to like Jolly Rancher, something that I don't really, use as much because I was just constantly eating it. It was turning into, a problem. So I was like, all right, what's something that I was trying to help, hey, the teachers come, let's sit and have some chocolate and talk, was turning into my, obsession. So I don't do that anymore. So now I try to exercise, or get out or just take a breath. Sometimes when you're off, it's just I'm sure you do the same thing, just get out and walk around.
Yeah.
Take a break for yourself is also, really helpful. So we'll do that too. But the stresses of the job are just, make sure the building is safe. I mean, safety is a huge thing. We've talked to you many a times about coming and helping us develop our safety plan, make sure that everything is running smoothly. And if anything happens, what would happen, make sure we have the plan, be effective. That's always something in the back of our minds too, that we want to make sure, we do our drills and that type of thing. Making sure, all the kids are learning academically, children first is very important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting the needs of them and also the staff, because we are all human. So even though you're a teacher doesn't mean that you don't have challenges of your own. And we have try to help them, go get through it or whatever that they're doing, or just give them ideas about, did you see this, this really cool way of teaching this concept. That
sometimes the personnel can be more challenging than the people you serve. I find at least in policing sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Yeah. Adults. Yeah. So, I love my job, but it does have a lot of different, we have parents, we have staff, teachers, we have the kids, it is a lot of different people that you are dealing with, and depending on the day, you could be dealing with, all three at once,
Sure.
with challenges that have happened, so, but, I love it. Like I said, I'm a people person, so, I enjoy it. And, whatever the frustrations we have, I know there's something that we can do to solve it or try to overcome.
Sure. So we know you like to read and dining and, a little exercising. Are there any other hobbies that you have that you really like or you really enjoy?
You know what? I did a lot of painting and, craft type of things like making cards and that kind of stuff before I became an administrator. But that is all kind of gone to the side until I retire because I just don't have the time. I used to sew, make my own curtains, that type of thing. But, that is like gardening. I used to garden too. Now I hire a gardener. I'm looking to find somebody to make curtains for me because you just have time. You don't have the time that, you used to have, so, and too, you might have the time, but I'm kind of mentally exhausted by the time I get home, and then the weekend just wants to relax, spend time with family, read a good book, that type. So when I retire, I have lots of projects that I'm ready to do.
Yeah. So if there's anywhere in the world you could go visit and see, non-COVID, money's not an issue, where would that place be and why? You
know what? My husband and I have always talked about going to Australia because it's far, it's a long trip. It was something that we would like to go to. I have family. My dad is from Ireland. He's one of 14. My grandmother had 14 children. I know, I can't imagine. But
I can barely handle 2.
I know, can you imagine?
Well, I think with 14 though, like the older ones end up dealing with the younger ones, so maybe it's easier in some regards. I don't know, but yeah, that's crazy.
Could be, except, in Ireland at the time, in the 30s, there was a maximum exodus, right? Everybody left.
Yeah.
So my dad came to this country at age 16. So, but anyway, so I have relatives in New Zealand and Australia that I've never
Wow.
seen.
Okay.
So I would just love to go, just see that different terrain there. It just seems so unique and original, and I would love to see it, So how about you?
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to go to Australia. I had a friend that did their last, half of their college year there, and, did an abroad program there, and they loved it and they spoke so highly of it. So I've always kind of talked that I don't like flying, so I always say I got to save up for the first class tickets, because it's going to be hard to fly that long coach. But you know what? Closer to home, even Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. I've been, all over the place, I think. But Hawaii is one of those places that I've never been to that, we talk about, and this is kind of like those moments. And I think with this COVID is maybe kind of think of this a little differently too, is, we got a plan to do it. Like just thinking, hey, it's in the future. There might not, who knows when that future is going to be or where it's going to be. And even along those same lines, and I think we're going to set this up for next summer now. We've always talked about doing the Grand Canyon and doing like one of those, horseback or donkey rides down to the bottom and camping. And so I would say those two things. I think the Grand Canyon, in the mainland, but definitely Hawaii as well. So those are things that I want to put out. It's funny, and the COVID made me think of this. And there's a quick story about my dad. So my dad was always a history person. He loved history, and me and him, we always talked about going to Gettysburg. And there was this horseback tour of the war sites, Civil War sites in Gettysburg, and we talked about going, and my dad ends up getting sick, as you know, and he gets cancer and he ends up dying. We never got to do it, and he wasn't sick before that. He was healthy, and I always, oh man, and I said to my wife, we're going. And I believe it or not, the sheriff from Rockland County owned one of these horseback tour companies, and then he dies. And the tour company, and I was like, man, we're going. So we actually did it. We found another company that was there, and I took my wife and my two boys. We went and did 2 days, and it was just amazing. And another thing that always makes me think, like, don't put things off. Obviously we have money restraints and job restraints and family restraints, but if you can make those kind of things work, try to do it. And I think about that all the time. And that's why, like, now with COVID, I'm like, we're going to the Grand Canyon. Not obviously we can't go this summer, but I think next summer, hopefully things will be able to come together that we can do that. So that's the plan, at least. We'll see.
No, I think that's good because I try to do that myself. I mean, somebody had always said to me, and I kept it in mind, that, as we get older, you should be doing things now that you can do, like the Grand Canyon, which I've done with my two boys, hiking, going to those national parks. Because when you get older, that's when you do the cruise. That's when you do the tour bus, because then you can't do those hiking things. So sure. I said that was such great advice to me. Yep. So my husband and I have been trying, my kids are older now, so sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. Okay. But we tried to go, we tried last year every month going somewhere. It could just be, go hiking up to Woodstock in New York, Mm-hmm. But the idea is our weekends, you know this too, are very short. So you go, oh, well, I'll do it one of these days. But if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to get done. And I find with the kids, even, like, you want to share some of these things, because I'm sure my kids weren't like, oh, great, let's go to Gettysburg and, go on a tour of the Civil War. But once they got there, they thought it was really cool. Even Chris, the younger one, like, just the horseback ride was the cool part for him. Like, I don't know if he really got the full understanding of the tour part, but the horseback part was the cool part. So I think, to your point, I mean, it's really important to do those things.
And, here in the Hudson Valley, we have a lot of things. We have, Washington headquarters over there in Newburgh, New Windsor has the cantonment. I think we notice that children, when they have the experiences that you give them, as parents, if you can just give them to those historic sites, when they start learning about it, they have now a background as to, oh, wait, I was there with my family, now I read this. And so they retain more information when they've had those type of experiences.
And, so, I agree. And, we had another quick story is Christopher in 5th grade, whatever the class was, I don't know, but they were talking about the White House. And he came home one day and he says, can we go to the White House? And I've never been to the White House. And I said, I actually had been to the White House, but I'd never been with them. And I said, boy, that'd be cool. Let's try that. So make a long story short, I was able to get tickets for the White House and for the House, of Representatives and all these different places. And we made a weekend or a weekday trip. We went to Baltimore. The Mets were in town that weekend. We saw a Mets game. We went to the White House. We went all over Washington for a few days. And we still talk about that. And, it just was that little thing like, hey, can we go to the White House? And I never really thought of it. And then that was something he brought home from school one day, and it was a great trip that we were able to do as a family. That really, we drove, it wasn't that far, 4 or 5 hours, and it didn't cost anything other than the hotel and the gas and some food. It was good. So those are things you're right, you got to try.
Yeah, especially if you have children, because it benefits them so much. And the research just shows that children that have had those experiences and children that don't, when they have the experience of going to someplace and actually seeing it, their comprehension of material is much more than somebody that has not been there. So, but like I said, if you don't have the means, we live in a beautiful Hudson Valley that has the Revolutionary War sites here are just amazing. Yeah. And just in New York in general, or like you say, go to New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey, there's so many things within a short distance that parents
in New York City, the museums and you're right. There's such a people should really take that advice and do that. So before we go, just a couple things. There's been no school for 3 months. Come September, it's going to be, almost 6 months without school, which is probably, not probably the first time children have ever had this. So what can parents do over the summer, over the next few months, to try to get their children prepared for this reintroduction? Because I think that's going to be a challenge for some parents and children, and for you.
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is something that I'm sure a lot of parents want to know what they can do. So, the best thing is, like we just discussed, take them on trips, take them on historic places, or even just hiking in areas and talk about animals. And if you know some of the trees, that's all science things. Mm-hmm. There's so many things online, but also just read, have the kids make sure they read to them if they're young, and just kind of do that. That shows, when children are read to, again, that experience is much better for their comprehension, their exposure. When they're not reading and they could be very, the backlash could be, drastic for that. Yeah, because they won't make as much progress. But if they can just, read and do that, that would be great. And then, any type of math, New York State has got everything online. So even I'm sure our teachers have given advice to on Google Classroom, just basic facts, addition facts, subtraction facts, multiplication and division. You don't have to, go into, how to multiply fractions. That's our job, right?
Right.
But if they don't have their basic facts, or just do games with it, or use two playing cards and you play war and who says the fact first, make it fun. That type of thing. But I tell you, the payoff is very big when you do that, and just consistently, over the summer. Doesn't have to be work. It could be like that the parents could do, or they could make a trip if they can. Mm-hmm. That would be the best thing. And just read.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So, all right. So we got the kindergartners are missing out on their kindergarten graduation, the fifth graders on their moving up to the middle school. So what's the one thing you want to say to the students and to the community of the elementary school at this point before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so we did have not a virtual, but there's a video that the kindergartners did get. It's on our Menacing Valley Facebook page. Okay, cool. So we did do that. And fifth grade is coming out June 22nd with our moving up ceremony. Of course, we can't do it in person, but we did create a video that they could see, that the families could see, grandparents, it's easy on Facebook, that they could just, just share it with whoever. So that's the good news. But I think, I think we're stronger sometimes when we come up with adversity, right? So this has been something that's been difficult for a lot of people. And I think we might not see it right now, but I think in the end, or maybe in, months to come, we will recognize, some of the things that we've done together as a community that will make us stronger. So, we've had the food program that goes out, and delivers breakfasts and lunch. And everybody has pulled together pretty much, as part of the community. The seniors, were trying to do a lot of things for the seniors to help them with, transitioning. Now we won't see them. At least fifth grade will see them, because they'll go to middle school. They will still be with us, right? But seniors are going off to college. So I know, there's been a lot of trying to work together just to make their experience special. So I think through all this, we have come together as a community stronger. People have helped out. People have brought in food and distributed food to people that, maybe, are struggling right now. So I'm sure you see that too in you are, you know,
Yep,
a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that, you know,
Right.
I think through this, it's been very challenging, but sometimes when you come out of it, you can definitely, it's going to be a different world. I think it'll change, but I think we can come out of it, you know, thinking about, well, if this didn't happen, we wouldn't have had this, or we
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to do this.
No, I
So I
agree.
will learn from it.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for joining me this month. It's great that you were able to come with us and have this half hour. So I want to thank everyone for listening or tuning in. And again, hopefully we'll be back with you live in a month or two. And we're looking forward to that. Once those details are known, we'll put it out on our Facebook and Twitter pages. And again, anytime you can call me at 845-386-8886 or email me at chief@mountainhopepolice.com. I want to thank Julia, and I owe you a mug. We'll get that to you at some point because we give each of our guests a Mountain Hope Police mug every month. So we'll get that to you. And thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.